This is probably not.
Good evening, everyone. We have a pre-board meeting recognition. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Krista to let us know what we're doing.
Good evening, President Adair, Vice President Reyes, members of the Board of Education, Superintendent Dixon, Treasurer Bohoric. Thank you for having us. I am very pleased to introduce you to Ms. Beverly Robinson, the founder of Coats for Children. She is here with two of her colleagues from the board, and they would like to present a donation to us.
Good evening, everyone. As it has already been said, I'm Beverly Robinson, and this is Lisa Gowowski, and this is my husband, Kevin Robinson, of 37 years. We are Coats for Children, and we thank you for the yays, because those yays go a long way. We provide brand new coats for children in Ohio, and we have done that for the last several years, but we are so excited that we have also done this for Columbus Public Schools for several years. This is our 16th year providing warmth for children in Ohio, throughout Ohio. But the most joyous occasion that I can honestly say is that when I have the opportunity to donate to Columbus Public Schools, where I was a student 100 years ago. So this means so much to us. So please accept this wonderful donation that has been a labor of love for all of us. It is 306 brand new coats. And with that, it comes with so many different community partnerships that we are involved with. So thank you so much, and that's it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for creating this wonderful organization and making sure all of our students stay warm and toasty. We know that this definitely helps families. I actually just went and purchased a coat myself for one of my little ones, and sometimes those expenses are something that we don't think about. How much even getting one at Walmart or Target. So thank you so much for your dedication. 16 years to your alma mater district is just amazing. So I think a few board members want to say something. Board Member Cole?
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. and Mrs. Robinson, board member, thank you so very much for your continued partnership with this district. We at Columbus City Schools are incredibly proud of what you've given back and how it's made the impact with our children. I've not only seen your footprint throughout the years in the district, I've also seen your footprint with our faith community in Greater Columbus. So thank you so much. God bless your work. And just thank you. And whatever I can do personally to continue to be of assistance to you, please, you both know it's nothing but a phone call.
Yes.
Bless you.
Thank you so much.
Board Member Beckerly?
Just quickly, I was a teacher for 13 years in Columbus, and knowing that we had these coats, I mean, I've personally given them out and said, where are the coats? We have a kid who needs a coat, or, and just being able to solve that need in that moment is huge.
It is.
So thank you.
You are so welcome. Thank you so very much for that. We delight in, if I may say something, we delight in doing that. And when I set this program up 16 years ago, we relied heavily on the community to be involved. It is so imperative that the principals, teachers, social workers, guidance counselors, school nurses, the PTOs, everyone that is involved in our children's lives, they already have that networking relationship already established. So that is why we wanted it to come from them. And if I may say one last sentence, the beauty of the program of Coats for Children is that the teachers, principals, social workers, guidance counselors will make a call to the student's parent or guardian or send a note home. And it's done in such a dignified way that that next day that child comes to school and they have a brand new coat, and it's just like, and we have these coats to show, they're just like everyone else's. And that makes a huge difference. So thank you so very much for acknowledging that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's true.
We wanted to take a few photos. So board members who are present, if you want to come around. Good evening, everyone. I am calling our October 19th, 2021 board meeting to order. Please call the roll.
President Adair,
Present.
Ms. Beckerly,
Present.
Mr. Brown,
Here.
Mr. Cole,
I am here.
Dr. Pierce,
Present.
Mr. Ragland,
Here.
Vice President Reyes.
Here.
You have a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you so much. Will you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, board members, before we go into the adoption of the agenda, I have just a few quick announcements for you. I'm going to start off, Board Member Brown would like me to remind everyone that early voting has started. He went and voted today. He's got his little sticker on. So make sure that you exercise your right to vote. And if you are one of our students, this is your first time voting, we would love to see some of those pictures on our social media, you exercising your right, and it's really exciting when you participate in the process. I also want to announce that we are seating a committee to look at our board public engagement, and that will be Board Member Beckerly, Board Member Reyes, and Dr. Pierce. They actually make up the public engagement committee currently, and they are going to be putting together a plan to present back to the board about what the next steps will be and how we are going to uplift the more formalized public engagement with the board and our community. So I'll look forward to that presentation, and we can decide on a day, but I am thinking probably towards the beginning of December. Should hopefully give you enough time. If not, we can discuss.
Okay. I look forward to that discussion.
Thank you. What?
That date won't work for me.
Okay, we'll pick a date.
Awesome.
Okay, and the last thing I'd like to just more recognize than anything is just a note to our staff. Over the past couple weeks, I and other board members have heard you. We've heard you talk about how stressed you are. And you might not have used that word stress, but we've heard you say you feel like you're drowning, that you're overwhelmed, that you are underwater, that you don't know if you can go on. And I need you to know from the top, we hear it. We know. And this has been a time that has been really challenging for everyone involved. We're 5 days all in, but this is anything but a normal school year. Our students are different. The culture and climate of the world is different. We are still in a global pandemic. So while the superintendent and her team are really digging in and trying to figure out how best to help you, I want you to know that this board hears you, and we appreciate you, and we know it's hard, and I need you to know we are here for you, and we'll support the superintendent and team in whatever we can do. Your social emotional health is critical. You are the front line. You are working with our students who have endured massive trauma these past couple years, and we know it is hard. So just know that we are here for you. Please reach out. Please use your wellness. Please use your employee assistance if necessary. Please reach out to HR and be supportive of one another. So I wanted to just say that quick note because we're at the end of a quarter, and I know it is getting stressful. And I know that this year, again, is posing a lot of challenges that we might not have foreseen. So I just want to send that quick note to all of our staff, no matter what you do, whether or not you're in a classroom, on a school bus, in a lunchroom, helping our students in everything that you do. I know everyone is feeling this massive amount of stress. So I just want to recognize that from the top and know that we care. Okay, board members, on our agenda this evening, we do not have any public comment on agenda items. We have a report from our superintendent. We are not expecting a report from the auditor. We have a report from our treasurer. We have some items in board matters, and we have a series of public hearing on reemployment of retired employees, all bus drivers, I might add. And then we have our consent agenda, and we are then going to adjourn for we have public comment, sorry, on non-agenda items, and then we will adjourn.
I motion to approve our agenda.
Second.
Thank you. I heard a motion and a second. Hearing no objections, the agenda is approved. All right, so we're going to go right into our superintendent's report. Madam Superintendent, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, President Adair. My report tonight will largely be focused on a presentation from the Facilities Master Plan team, but I would like to share some brief updates regarding our health and safety initiatives first. Our vaccine clinics. We continue to partner with the Columbus Public Health to offer dedicated clinics for all CCS teachers, staff, and students each Thursday this month. We have had hundreds of people take advantage of these clinics, which offer booster doses and first doses of the COVID-19 vaccine and the flu shot to eligible recipients. Columbus Public Health will be at these upcoming school locations from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Beechcroft High School on Thursday, October 21st, and Linda McKinley STEM Academy on Thursday, October 28th. All CCS teachers, staff, and students can access these dedicated clinics regardless of where they work or attend school, and no appointment is needed. As I mentioned in my report at our last board meeting, we have been working to finalize a contract with ProLink Healthcare to provide nursing staff that can help conduct our COVID-19 contact tracing. I'm pleased to report that that contract is on the agenda tonight for your consideration. The contract calls for up to 60 nurses, some registered and some LPNs, to work at an off-site location and perform our contact tracing. Once in place, this agreement will allow for our full-time nurses to return to handling their clinical responsibilities in our school. We're planning to use federal ESSER grant funds for the ProLink contract pending the board's approval. We know that contact tracing has been a time-consuming endeavor this fall, and I believe that with this new agreement, we'll help alleviate the burden on our nurses and school staff. We're also utilizing our CATS review team to aid in determining the necessity of large group quarantines, such as athletic teams, entire classes, or grade levels at a school. We're also using ESSER funds on a contract with SafeX to allow for all of our nurses to get fit tests for N95 masks. Our school administrators and secretaries also have the option to get fit tested for N95s through SafeX. This includes both qualitative and quantitative fit testing. This contract is less than $10,000 and thus does not come before the board for approval, but I wanted to highlight the initiative regardless. Our F&P. So finally, I would like to transition to our Facilities Master Plan presentation. While the day-to-day operations of the district are the priority, our dreams for the future have also been center stage for the past few months. Phase 5 of the Facilities Master Plan process continued last evening with the start of our Consider phase. Throughout this process, the driving force has been our Portrait of a Graduate, our North Star, which outlines our hopes, dreams, and aspirations for all students. Our facilities must reflect and support the 6 attributes that shape our Portrait of a Graduate in Columbus City Schools: adaptability, communication, creativity, critical thinking, global empathy, and technology. Columbus City Schools is committed to providing a much different educational experience for our students, and our school buildings must reflect this commitment. We know that many CCS buildings are outdated, unreliable, and impractical as 21st century learning environments. Instead of school buildings being places that students have to be, how can we design them so that they are dynamic learning environments where students want to be? How can we create open and collaborative spaces that promote unique opportunities and individualized learning? These questions are critical as we consider the future of school facilities in Columbus. Our students deserve the best learning environments possible, and we are committed to developing a plan that meets those needs. It is important that our students, staff, and community collectively help shape this plan. Their input is an investment in the future of the largest school district in Ohio. To provide more information about what the FMP process means to the future of our CCS school facilities, I will turn it over to our Deputy Superintendent, Dr. David James.
Good evening, President Adair, Vice President Reyes, and members of the board. Just to give a little history, currently 112 academic facilities in the Columbus City Schools, and 46 of those have been previously rebuilt and or renovated. And so we have a large project ahead of us in making sure that we have adequate educational opportunities for students who are in the remaining buildings. And I think many of us can remember at the start of school having to have kids stay at home because of lack of air conditioning, and we're remedying that. Part of what we hope to gain from this ambitious building project. But a lot of that means community support and education. And that's what our team at Leggett Architects is helping us with in terms of students. Around 24,167 students in our district that are in facility master plan buildings out of the 47,000 plus students we have. That means we have around 22,000 students that will require these innovative learning opportunities. Also, the commission will be doing an enrollment projection for us with the group Future Think that works for the Facilities Commission. So we are really closing in on a target of developing options for the board to review. And again, a lot of that is really dependent upon, I think, very rigorous public participation and input. And so at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our partners at Leggett Architects to give us a review of what's been happening out in the community at our community meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Robin Randall. I'm the Director of the Education Practice at Leggett Architects, and this is Dennis Pavin. He is the project manager on the Facilities Master Plan. And we're tag teaming with our entire team to engage with your district. And first and foremost, the students are leading the way. And the students helped design this process. They've been impactful from day one. And we have student leaders. You can see they're participating in an engagement process where they're communicating and sharing their disappointment with their current facilities, but also hopes and dreams about what is the future of learning in the district. You're surrounded by this engagement process. We've done this with the students, and we've done this with the teachers. We've also done this with the community. And some of the outputs are listed. You can see the students are looking for more windows. There's even a student that sketched, "My school feels like a prison." And then when we engage with some of the students, they get so excited about what the future of learning can be. If you go to the next slide, we've come up with some themes. It's amazing that we've put together a whole selection of photos, but there's really about 20 that they really want and engage, and there's themes that have developed around these. One of the students picked out a image that talked about outdoor learning and having fresh air and being able to engage with the outside. Another student chose a very inspiring open space. We were talking about open spaces. Dr. Dixon talked about that. And I said, what would that make you feel like? And he said, "My heart would smile." So that's the theme that we're talking about. The students are really leading that way. So these are some of the summary of the students. We've also engaged with the staff, and the staff has been really excited. In fact, there were staff that joined us last night There was a request to make this engagement process a professional development opportunity, so let's look at that. Also, the staff is saying, I really need a space for me. You talked about the stresses that everyone is under. We need to have those kind of spaces where we feel better, and so the staff is really requesting that. You can see on the next slide some of the quotes from the staff. Again, just highlighting how do we support the portrait of the graduate, what are the kind of spaces that we are needed to support the staff to produce that kind of education. And then community engagement. It's been a blast to meet all of your community and engage with them. We need more people to come though. I think the stresses that were discussed earlier are affecting families, and we want attendance to come. So please come and join us, and your voice is important. Bring your children, bring your students to be a part of it too. We've engaged with the community in person for the last phase, which was anticipate, and it was really important to have that connection. Again, the community is saying it's like a chorus. It starts with the students and it comes from the staff and then it goes from the community. But it's a chorus of saying we need more natural light. We need the open spaces. We need easy access to the facilities. One of the parents had a student in a wheelchair and was concerned about access. And then technology, easy access to technology. So we're getting really positive feedback from the community, but we need more. So the next phase is consider, and as Dr. Diskin said, we started last night. We only had 9 people from the community to attend, but 2 of those were staff, and we got some excellent feedback from them. We added some all-region meetings. Previously, we were only meeting in the evenings, but now we have 2 morning engagement sessions on Wednesday and Saturday in response to the request from the community. So we're trying to do all we can. Every time we get feedback, we pivot the process and make sure that we're engaging. We've gotten some really good feedback from you, the board, and from the staff, and we're really trying to customize this process so that we engage as many individuals as we can. We had a student workshop this morning where we had a class of 30 giving some feedback and working this consider problem. So it's an exercise that is a simulation, and Dennis is going to tell you more about that.
Board members, board president, Dr. Dixon, thank you for the opportunity. It's good to see you. One of the objectives that we've had from the beginning is that we want to make this engagement process active. So not only active voice, but active participation, active in-time, real live feedback as we're going through this process. So we do not want people to feel like we are talking to them. We do not want people to feel like we've already got the ideas. We're here for a show. So what we are doing is we've created a simulation within the actual facilities within the district, using the attributes of a portrait of a graduate as the North Star. So we are using a simulation board created for each series of grade levels, and we are using it very strategically and logically based. Where are they located geographically, and how many of the 46 projects that Dr. James mentioned, where are they, and where are the projects that haven't been addressed yet? Where are the facilities that need the help? Then the objective of the activity is to place a block which represents 100 students geographically on a board, and how it can systematically fit and equitably fit from top to bottom, left to right within the district. And then we are introducing our rules. As Dr. James mentioned, we are a partnership with the commission. The commission has its rules. In order to receive their funding, there are certain size of structures that have to be built for school buildings. And ranking from capacity, high school, which is 1,200, middle school, which is 8, elementary school, which is 6. So when you look at where some of the capacities of your existing facilities are, in relation to where the students are living, where the students are going to school, and how big those buildings can be. It's really dramatic in the response that we've received, especially just our first night last night. So we are really excited about the opportunity that this simulation brings, the information we're going to get, and the discussion that we had. Even though we had a limited number of attendees yesterday, we had fantastic discussion, really deep and interactive discussion. There was tension in the room, and not bad tension. It was, wait a minute, I don't understand that. And you had people that just met that night that were really discussing some of the challenges that we are going to have to face collectively. And I believe there's an introduction. Okay.
Phase 5 is consider, and consider is really just thinking about all the potential options there are, thinking about academic spaces for the district and how things could, and I would say especially should look different going forward.
Columbus City Schools community members will have the opportunity to participate in a hands-on simulation exercise.
I think what's maybe the most exciting about Phase 5 is it really is probably the most interactive session we're going to have for the communities.
It got a much better visual, especially with the hands-on portion of the simulation. It showed visually, it gave an idea of how it looks from the bigger picture.
Your participation will help the district decide the future of its schools and how those buildings put the more than 47,000 students at the heart of the district's long-term vision and priorities.
The goal of the facility master plan is really to create generational change, to really set the path, the course for our school district for at least the next 20 years.
So we're really excited about future sessions that we have coming up. And obviously, as Robin mentioned, we are asking for an outreach to the community for additional participation. But just know that when you arrive to this, you're going to be asked to participate. You're going to be asked, using this sense lightly, getting your hands dirty with this activity. And we really think you'll benefit from it to really get a grasp of the challenges we have to face. So moving forward, we have as the consider phase moves, we will be completing this on November 1st. And then what are the next steps? The grid map that you saw that the pieces were moving around on, those will move forward to the next phase, except what we will be doing is presenting the options that are presented to us. So we will have, instead of the boxes that are available for manipulation, we're actually going to have those drawn out on the board. Then the engagement session is about consensus building and decision making. I like this option for the high schools because of why. So we're going to be using everything that we've developed up to this point into what we are calling our final engagement session, where people have the opportunity to decide on what they want and why they want it for the future of Columbus City Schools.
So just to be absolutely clear, all of the information, the options that we're drawing are coming from the consider phase. We don't know what the answers are. The community is telling us what the answers are. And then we'll collect those, present those, and in Transform, we'll actually get to choose and discuss the pros and cons of each of the options. And that is how this voice is very different from any process before, because this is coming from the community. This is coming from the students and the staff and the community. It's community engagement, and it's your voice that we need at the table. If your voice has not been at the table so far, you can still come and be a part of this process, because if you're not at the table, we don't want you looking back and saying, oh, I wish I had been a part of that process. I have an opinion, and my opinion matters. Come and share your opinion. Please do. We had a teacher come to the engagement process yesterday and said, I believe in smaller schools. And she was almost ready to walk out because she was like, why are we listening to the commission to do larger schools? And then we talked a little bit about how there can be a school within a school. You can have large populations on the same site and still feel like you're in a small environment and a comfort and cared environment. And once we talked through that, she was like, oh, okay. And she dug right in and played and really understood the simulation. And afterwards, she came up to me and thanked me. Thank you for explaining how this works, because I didn't know that it could look like this. And then this morning, we had some students, and they were just filling in the old boxes. And I said, why are you filling in just the old schools? Well, that's where the dashes are. And I said, no, you have the capability to communicate with the leadership of the school district to tell them what you want. And here's what the options are. Think big. And they said, you know what I want to do? I want to put a 1,200 student middle school in every quadrant of the city so that everybody gets the same thing. Because I know that the north side is different from the south side. So they got excited, they got engaged, and they gave us that kind of feedback. And you know what they wrote on the sticker, on the little notepad? We deserve this. All right, so they know, and they know what they need. Okay, so now we've got some questions for you. And we know that this is an open discussion, and this is what we need to know from you as board members and from the community. So we're just going to ask some questions and maybe open it up for a little discussion. And you guys are welcome to ask us questions as well, too. So we're starting the conversation by asking you questions. We want and need more input from the community. You are the stakeholders, the public is the stakeholders, and it's critical to the success of this process to understand what are the topics of interest that are important to the community. What do you feel are the important topics for the community? And what are the issues that you've heard from your community that must be addressed by this plan? Because we can pivot again to make sure that these topics are being discussed.
Anyone like to go first and answer questions? Board Member Cole.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you so much, Leggett team, for this presentation and for your work with us. I've had the opportunity to attend several of these events, and there's been a recurring theme, whether it's with our youngsters, they're looking for broader, more open spaces, maybe even interim spaces in between classrooms that allow them the opportunity to interact, maybe give them the opportunity to work in either a smaller team or get seclusion by themselves with some earphones or something like that on, and have their own kind of personal time outside of an ongoing classroom if they feel like they need to get out for a moment. With the adults, one of the biggest themes that has been discussed that I've seen is athletics. What are we looking at in terms of modifying our buildings and grounds to accommodate stronger athletic programs and stronger community participation? So if they're just off the top of the head, those are two things that have been reverberating wherever I've actually attended these events. I do encourage, I know most of you all have been to this already and gone, but I do encourage us to continue to tell friends, parent groups, others. I encourage our administration to reach out to our building principals, continue the efforts there. I even also encourage us, because some of these events are on a school night, to have food, to have some sort of food available for our families for purposes of making sure they had something to eat before or after, and most assuredly, just as an incentive to attend. They'll get a lot out of it. Last thing is I love that exercise that was introduced yesterday. I thought it gave a very practical, tactile experience to everybody who attended and was a part of it. It gave them an opportunity to literally be in our seat, in the administration seat as well, and look at how this is all configured. In closing, the last thing I'll share is for the administration, definitely to make sure, as we're working with Leggett and others, that we are incorporating at least being mentally prepared, or, in a planning kind of process, flexible enough to figure out how this whole COVID dance will figure into it. Because this is Ohio, and much like changing weather, our legislators, our governor, and that clock is ticking for him, but our governor, there's always this kind of vacillation between closing, standards of, distance, all of that good stuff. I think that we need to take that under consideration too as we continue our planning and maybe even integrate that in some of the conversations. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. We are going to go to Board Member Beckerly, then Ragland, then Reyes.
Okay. Hello. I've been a hanger-on at a lot of these community sessions, so we know each other fairly well. And it's clear from what I've observed and from what you're sharing that while we have had really unacceptably low attendance, we've had quality conversations. And it really is exciting and it is inspiring, and I think the process is good. And so I don't want to undersell how true that is and how important that is. But I mean, and we've talked about this all along in terms of if they're not coming to us, how do we reach them? Because this is too important not to reach them. And oh, ditto on the food. I think we'll get more people if we have food. I think that's important. And so what I'm interested in is knowing that there's a plan to go out and gain this same input, probably the same exercise in the last two phases, from our teachers, principals, staff, students, and parents. And I think that we need to do that, although I'm not supposed to tell you what I think we need to do. I'm hopeful that we can figure out, we can get this feedback some way aggregated through regions, because a lot of the decision-making has regional impacts. I think there are ways, and Dr. Dixon, this is a curricular or academic thing. This, if we asked literally every student, because the students do lead the way, and when they do, man, they hit it spot on. And they really do provide us with the imperative of what they need. And we got to get their voices, in it to a more critical mass. And so I think that there are lots of ways we could say, we meaning you, yes. could say yes. to our academic team, make this part of a social studies / science / math / reading exercise. And ask our teachers to clear the decks on whatever the lesson plan is and integrate this instead. And I think that is, and I can think of half a dozen things off the top of my head. You could go back to your English class and write an essay about how you feel about, the building you have now versus the one you saw in the video. Or, depending on the age group, you could change it. But and there's all different ways we could be creative about hitting, and even like, I don't know how much, I would imagine there's breaking out, there's, critical communication and collaboration, like all of those standards we could hit. And we could have the whole district's voice in terms of students. And, the professional development idea with the teachers, principals, we need their input, we need it in sufficient levels so that because if we go through the prioritizing of whose input we need, right? Yes, we want to have our partners. Yes, we want to have the business people. We want to have all their input too. But if we don't have teachers, principals, students, parents, and staff, everyone. And so we have to find a way to really get that. And I think that has to come from us and then from you. Like, we have to say we need this, and then you have to say this is how. And it will change the narrative that we're hear all the time about all of these different groups don't feel like we listen to them. So let's say, wait, we're really listening to you. It's going to change. It's going to be like, oh. And it's a way to pivot into a more, even beyond FMP, just in terms of the culture of our district. So I think it's an opportunity, and it's important enough that we should do it. I mean, it's billions of dollars when all, so we can't get it wrong. Anyway, so that's my thought, and I'd like to see a plan in the next, I guess, 2 months, in terms of, if we stick with the timing, that we get that input. And it's extremely exciting, this work.
Thank you. Board Member Ragland.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to the team at Liggett. I've also attended several of these and really got some good feedback from the community. The first thing I'd like to address is how we go out and get more community engagement, rethinking what is currently going on at our facilities needs to be a part of what we do in communicating with the public overall. We've really missed a huge opportunity over the fall with our youth sports leagues, football leagues. We every single Saturday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every single week since July, we've had hundreds of families, hundreds of students on our sites the entire time. And I've been speaking with other board members as well as our leadership about this. We should have been out there because that is where our families are. They're there. We have a captive audience. They're sitting there for 2 hours at a time at our facilities, hundreds of them. Other stakeholders as well, because your dad comes to the football practice, might not see dad at a PTA meeting. Your uncle comes. I mean, it's thousands over since the summertime. Another aspect of that, we need to rethink how we are opening up our buildings currently to these youth organizations that want to use them. If we are more receptive to the things that they are asking us for, then I feel like they will be more receptive to responding to us when we need information from them. There's absolutely no excuse that a sports league with 90% Columbus City School students should be utilizing Bexley or Gahanna or private school facilities for their programming. They have hundreds of our families that go to those schools, and it's a recruitment tool for those schools to take our families from us. Now, we've got to do a better job of being open to them coming into our facilities, utilizing them, and then using those opportunities to communicate with them to get the feedback that we need to be effective with this. I agree wholeheartedly with Board Member Cole. We need to start being very intentional about how we talk about athletics. We can no longer lament the fact that we've got a public face that says, they talk about athletics before they talk about academics. It's our job to promote academics here within the district. We're doing that. Absolutely is at the forefront of everything that we are thinking. We have to use the energy that the public gives us. The public wants to talk about academics as it relates to the facilities master plan, then we need to be intentional about saying, here is how our athletics programs can help us feed what we want to do academically. Here is how larger schools can help us be more competitive athletically. Those are the types of things that we've got to say to the public so that they can engage with us in a different way. We've done quite a bit of great work with the folks that we have, but we've got captive audiences all throughout this city that we should be engaging in throughout the remainder of this process. And then my last thing, I think it's incumbent upon us as board members to really start now having a deep discussion about our open enrollment policy. The way that we are looking at open enrollment now allows for students to really kind of go wherever they can in the district, wherever they desire to go within the district, within their means. And what we are hearing from the public is that might not be the best approach to keeping kids in the district and keeping kids in their communities. And so, if the board is willing to start really being intentional about having that discussion on what our open enrollment policy is right now, how many students are engaged in our open enrollment, like how many students live in my neighborhood but go to school, outside of Region 2. We need to start getting some information around those types of things so that they can build into this process as well. Particularly when we start talking about transportation issues now that we are having and that are prevalent within this district, open enrollment and our policy behind open enrollment really kind of lends itself to some of the transportation challenges that we have. And so the board's got to do our due diligence in, getting information about that and being intentional about speaking publicly about it. So thank you again for all of your work. I've enjoyed working with both of you and your entire team. I know Region 2 is always listening and always watching, and they're excited about what's going to be going on tomorrow at Independence. So thank you again. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. We're going to go to Vice President Reyes, then Board Member Brown.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's surprising, or maybe not surprising, that we've all covered the same things. But I'm going to take a little bit different approach. So the option of coming to our families, so the PTAs, having that captive audience. So I also agree there. Once our kids are in the school, there's a study period. If they're hanging or waiting for the bus stop, we have some children that are on the buses for a little while. Is there something that we can do that's interactive? Maybe taking smaller bites of the information. We all have had to be creative in how we get information back from our customers or our clients. In the work I do on an everyday basis, I used to ask 20 questions. Now I'm asking 4 important questions. Very simple. Through a little app, it's 3-4 questions. Anyone who has Facebook, so maybe we can chomp down a little bit on the information that we're trying to get. Obviously, pickup times, drop-off times, PTAs. I agree with the rest of my colleagues as far as if our parents are in the building for whatever reason, if our children are and there's a free time, I think that's something that we should explore to get that feedback. On the academic piece, I also don't want us to forget the arts. And when everyone's talking about the sports, I don't want us to forget about the arts piece. I've heard many of our children would love to start theater, acting, and those things, especially at that middle school level. I mean, I'm from the South. I was playing in the band. I was doing my sports and getting academic rigor in 5th grade. So I was ready to go by the time I got into high school. So I hear a lot from our families. They have to go out into the community and do a lot of those things outside of our district because we don't offer that. And that may be a combination of some of our schools. I know that in Region 2, we visited some schools out in the east side, and we had a middle and an elementary school together. There was a big playground. One of the things they asked is, how can we make the playground better so that we could possibly have an intramural, some sort of additional space. So a lot of people we talk a lot about what's inside our buildings, but I think there's also opportunities for what's outside our buildings. When we talked about what Afrocentric was going to look like when we first built it, what we ended up with is a wonderful building, but there was a lot of things as we went through the process. Well, we're going to cut this, we're going to cut that. We talked about this would be a great facility to have state tournaments. Well, things started getting smaller and smaller and cut here and there, and it wasn't as big or as grandeur. I know that there's several reasons why that occurred, as when we talk about what can be done, what cannot be done. But I think I also go back a little bit to what Board Member Ragland was talking about, having that neighborhood school option. So we have those academics, we have those arts and those sports options. People would be more apt to go to a neighborhood school. But I think that also takes into account, as we look at it and then talk to our families and especially our students, is how do we have walkable neighborhoods so then we can also have the neighborhood school. right? So, so I think that's where we have to bring in some of our partners to have those true neighborhood conversations. And then we talk a lot about, in the last several years, we talked about Fort Hayes and, oh, that's a big campus. So do we have opportunity to create those in different areas of the city where we have land? I know we've sold a lot of land, we've sold a lot of things, but is there that capability of joining and combining some grades? It's also a benefit to some of our parents. You know, I hear from a lot of our parents, it's great to have, if I have a third grader, my third grader and my sixth grader are in the same area, so I have the same pickup, and they can take buses together, and I think there's a whole sense of being able to share resources that are already limited and stretched as they are. And my last point, I 100% support, and I'm happy that our staff talked about staff spaces. But as we talk about that, that goes back to children's spaces too, that are those places where you can just unload. A simple picnic table. When I was out there, those are some of the things that I heard our parents and our teachers and our administrators saying, could we have picnic tables out in the playground where we can sit and just have a good, a good conversation or have class. So simple things like that that create, and I know we've talked about outdoor spaces, but some of them can be inexpensive. It doesn't have to be the big, now we have to do an arbor and a trail, which are wonderful. Our Scioto school is wonderful, but I think those are some of the things that I've been hearing from our families, and really, I think it's very difficult for our families to get out. So I do agree and support innovative ways for us to go to our community to get that feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to Board Member Brown, then Dr. Pierce.
Thank you. Thank you. I, too, appreciate the work that you've done, and everything that I've seen has been first class, and your relationships with our community have been very good. And this, seems to be a really good process. I guess I'll withhold judgment until we get to the end, but it's looking good. One of the concerns I have, and this is different than anything you've heard yet tonight, is that every comment that's been made so far has been from people that are engaged in the schools, from people that are part of the school community. And I I no longer have children in school. They're grown. I have grandchildren in public school. I have a daughter who's a public school board member in another community. But the vast majority of people that I interact with on a regular basis are not engaged in the schools. They're in the arts community, the business community, the general community, as I describe it, the legal and judicial communities. And first, they aren't attending any of this activity that is underway. I'd like to see more of them do that. We might still explore ways that we can get further input from them, because they represent 80 to 85% of the people who live and reside and vote in our community and in our general community, and they're important. I do not want to underestimate for one moment the importance of hearing from our students, from our teachers, from our parents, and whichever groups, whether it's athletics or music, they're contributing very important comments that we must take into account. But there's all the rest of this. I do hear from people, some of the old timers just want to talk about the way things were when they went to Columbus City Schools. Could be 50 years ago, but that's when things were good. Or because of their experience in those years, that's why they think we should go back to neighborhood schools. I agree that there are great reasons to do and reconsider how we're approaching neighborhood schools, but not from, I guess their rationale is not one of those. But it does force us to look at it. I do hear from people who want more interaction with students in particular. And we need to build in ways that our students will interact with all of these people in the community and provide more opportunities for the general community to come into the schools to interact. Because in my experience, the more interaction with students, the more of, it might be one student in a personal relationship changes somebody's whole perspective of Columbus City Schools. And it's important. Just as an example, I called a clerk of courts in Kentucky this afternoon because I needed some information. I couldn't have found a more service-oriented, customer-oriented person who understood what I was looking for and emailed it to me within a half hour. I was amazed, and I wrote back to his managers to let them know. But I think the opportunities to interact are very, very important, and I don't know how much of that you'll hear from people who are already part of the school community. There is also sentiment out there, whether it's right or wrong or, things have changed, but that, we spend a lot of money and that we don't approach things in a way to save dollars. Now, some of them go off the deep end thinking that, we have boatloads of money or that we just spend it extravagantly, which we know is not the case. But that doesn't prevent some people from having that perception. So we do also need to both appear to be that we take steps to save money, and we must really take those steps, whether it's scaling down or creating bigger high schools or middle schools because of the efficiencies that come with that. That's one thought, that's something we should be thinking about. Whether it's doing some better sharing of some things or using technology. But whatever we can do to save cost and to show that we're saving costs, I think it also needs to be built into this. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce.
Thank you for coming to get our input on ways that you could engage the community. And so the comments that I'm going to make, while they could focus on giving suggestions for how to engage the community, will just focus on the process and hopefully steer you in a way to adapt, to flex with the process that you currently have. So one, I'll say that our community has fatigue. We've spent a lot of time discussing the portrait of the graduate, discussing what we want these spaces to look like. And we spent little time really thinking about how we begin to intertwine the two. Specifically, we need concrete examples of what curriculum will go into these buildings. And when I say curriculum, I mean, what are the arts classes? What are the music classes? Is there going to be graphic design? And what schools will they be in? So we need to have that tough, critical conversation around what this looks like when it goes into a building. I feel like many of the comments that I'm hearing from community members is a sense of fatigue because we're focusing on the space and we haven't moved the conversation to align with both of them in a critical and key way. The second element then relates to when we talk about this fatigue, relates to the idea of these big buildings without substance, right? So we're thinking about these big buildings with these students and with these open spaces and with these lights. And again, what's the substance that's going in there? Is it an Algebra 1 class? Is it, again, state-of-the-art athletic facilities where we have multiple gyms so our boys and our girls basketball teams can practice at the same time, where there are locker rooms for that? Then it goes all the way down to the practical, in which how are we really approaching the community? So when you say you've had engagement from staff, one of the things that I was sitting here and thinking, I have family members who are janitors in our school, who are bus drivers, and it baffles me that a lot of times our bus drivers, how do they go to the restrooms in our schools? Do we have close restrooms by when they pull into with their buses that they can run and go relieve themselves if they need to? Do we have spaces where all of our staff are welcomed? Or are we just thinking about spaces where teachers are welcome or where nurses are welcome? Like, how are we really thinking about the community that's going into these buildings and spaces? And so I think the fatigue comes in that way too, because we tend to segment the community and say, oh, we got this faith-based organization or we got this nonprofit, but really we have gaps in those people that we have not reached out to, that we have not talked out to. And I think those gaps are tremendous, because when you think about our bus drivers, they live in our district. Their students come to our schools. Their grandkids come to our schools. And yet we leave them out of this very critical and important conversation. So I think we also need to adapt to that and really think about how we're approaching our definition of community. When we think about students, I appreciate Board Member Ragland's, I smile and I think about Little League football Saturdays, and I appreciate that. But at the same time, the kids that will be attending these schools are in daycare right now. So which daycares are we going out to visit? How are we talking to these parents and saying, hey, I know you have a 6-month-old or, a 16-month-old, but let's start thinking about what you're going to look for when it's time to put that child in pre-K, when it's time to put that child in elementary school. That's the community we also need to be reaching out to. So going out to those daycares that have that step up to quality, those 2 stars, those 3 stars, and thinking about how we can begin to partner with them so their students are making that natural transition into our schools. Fourthly, and I'll kind of conclude here because really the buck stops with us. The fatigue is also around the lack of leadership. So we can have these great conversations, we can talk about what we want, but at the end of the day, if the community does not trust that this board is going to make the tough decision to consolidate schools, to close schools, to get to where we need to be as a community, then they're not going to engage in the process. And so I can say that very clearly, that if in my region, Region 4, we can't think about how we can begin to establish an academic campus over there, we're going to continue to lose families that leave our district. And so I guess I want to encourage you, one, that the process in some respects has worked really great, but in many respects you need to flex and be adaptive and move it to deal with the fatigue that's going on in our community. And the buck stops with us. We have a part to play in that, as well as you all having a part to play in that.
Thank you. So we want and need input from our community. Yes, we do. Everyone. I think the board members highlighted that very well. I think Dr. Pierce's point about where are our future students, because these are the children that will be in the buildings. It's also a good strategy to gather those parents, to board member Ragland's point, to already have them feel like this is a welcome community for them. Going out to teachers, I love the idea of the professional development. It really broke my heart. We had a teacher respond, it was I think a substitute teacher, who said, thank you for inviting me, but I really just don't know what I would say to this. And that's the thing, like every person that is in our buildings working with our students, the neighbor next to the school, the community person across the street, everyone has a say, because schools are for community. Without strong schools, we do not have a strong Columbus. Everybody has to be part of this. So we must go to them. And board members have given you lots of ideas about that. What topics or areas of interest are important to our community? I think our community really wants us to get this right, and we have to create the best urban education this country has seen, with top academics, rigorous academics, excellent opportunities, top-notch athletics, experiences with business and community for all of our students at every grade level, opportunities to engage in nature. These are things our community is telling us. You know, we are a district right now currently built for 100,000 students. We do not have 100,000 students right now. And so to Dr. Pierce's point, this board does need to stand strong, and I believe we will stand strong when it comes down to being able to reimagine what education looks like and how do we accomplish getting our portrait done. And that again goes to Dr. Pierce's point, a very good point about helping our community start to tie the academic vision into the building vision. What are the issues you've heard from our community that must be addressed in this plan? We must tell the truth. We must address systemic racism. We must do this right. It is time, Columbus. It is time to create this district. That is what the community is telling us. And so that is what we will do. And it is so important that everyone's voice is heard. Every single person has a stake. If you live in Columbus, you have a stake, and we need you. Your input is critical. I want to thank the Leggett team for your hard work. I especially want to thank you because I know we're hard. And that's because this is so important. And our staff understand how important it is. And we have made you pivot and turn around in a circle during this process. And that's because we have to get it right. We have to get it right. There is no other option. So thank you for your work in this and the ability to go ahead and make those pivots. In the end, I think we are creating a brand new process that is really starting to set the standard for how this work should be done and incorporate community voice in the way that it should. So thank you. And I guess I'll turn it back to you because you asked us the questions, and so.
Absolutely, and what I want to do is just thank the board for their engagement and participation in all the steps of the process thus far, and for challenging us. We welcome that because design is a messy process, and we need everybody's voice at the table, and we do need to customize this so it works. You're right, we don't have another chance. We have to get this right, and we want it to be a process that Columbus embraces. It's about the people of Columbus, and I know that every board member and administrator has the students at the heart of where they're making decisions, and that's where our heart is too. We want the students to have what they need to learn and be the stars, the North Star of the portrait of the graduate, so that they can all have those attributes. And we know facilities matter, that facilities set the tone for education. And unfortunately, we had a student tell us today that they felt like they were entering a concentration camp when they came to school. So that's not the kind of image that, we're better than that, right? Columbus Schools is better than that, and students, they deserve better than that. And so we're here for you. We're gonna pivot every time you ask, and we're gonna get there. And what I wanna say is that there's a momentum building, and there are tools available to you. There are surveys, like Vice President Reyes described, that can be done on the bus. There is a tabletop simulation exercise that can be done by anyone. In fact, any of the staff, they can read the directions and they can facilitate it. Any of the board members can facilitate this. This is a product that we've invented for you to use with your district, and it shows the challenges that are ahead of you in terms of decision making. And we need people to participate in that. We need businesses, we need staff, we need janitors, bus drivers, all of the people that were listed by each of you. We can facilitate, you can be a part of that. You can facilitate a workshop as well. So we have the tools for you, and let's do this together. Anything you wanted to add, Dennis?
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
all the pivots and changes. They've been intentional and with good reason. And we really feel that all the pivots and change and adapting and flexing, it's done the right thing and will continue to do the right thing. So it's not just change for change. You mentioned how it can be a challenge, but it's been change for the better.
This is really weird. It's bothering me. I just have one quick question. As we're having these conversations, especially with our students, because you said they describe spaces as concentration camps and as prisons, can we dive deeper into how they're analyzing that? Is it the windows? Is it the space? Is it the treatment? Because that really, what is it about the space in particular? I would like more information on that. That just...
To that right now. So we were at Independence today. As you enter into the building, it's a concrete building. At the main entrance, there are bars on the second floor. I think when it was designed, it was a decorative element, but it really cast this image of not feeling comfortable in a space. And one of there was another facility, Briggs High School, where the students said there is no natural light in this space. And if you remember, Briggs was built in the 70s during the energy crunch, and there are only small slotted windows in the classrooms. So architecture matters. You know, those kind of environments are not welcoming, open, you know, encouraging spaces to be in. And, you know, there's that time period, that was the architecture that was designed. So these buildings are dated. They're facilities that have not been remodeled since the 70s or before. And so they don't have those kind of spaces that you're seeing in all the images that are surrounding you. So that's the discouraging thing. There was no mention of behavior. It was all about the facility. They knew that we were architects and they were giving us feedback about the facility. So I just want to be clear about that.
Awesome, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Madam President, can I just give one short?
Sure.
Very, very, very quickly for me. I also just again want to applaud our students in my region, Region 5, and I've been throughout other regions too. I've just seen some incredible feedback from our kids, even our elementary school students. I mean, it was just really profound. But our contribution of our student leaders to this process, our students who have been helping guide the process and facilitate at these meetings has been phenomenal. So I just want to thank them as well. Our students at Northland High School, one of our young ladies who's aspiring to be an architect herself. I mean, I was just very impressed. So thank you, Madam President. I just did not want to go without saying that.
Very true. We're gonna, I don't know if it goes back to Superintendent.
You had something?
I actually have something about your report, the superintendent's
Okay. Yeah,
report. I have nothing more about FMP.
I was gonna ask for the additional questions on
Yeah.
hers if we're done with this, I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
thank
much.
you, thank you. Okay, that concludes my report, so any questions?
Okay, so are there
Yep.
questions on other elements of the superintendent's report? Board Member Beckerly.
I had a quick question for Dr. James. Your slide had 59,111 on it. What was that? Was that the capacity of our
That's the capacity based on the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission. In
capacity of all of our buildings or
Yes,
capacity
so
of the non-F&P?
all of the buildings,
So,
which is based on 25 kids in a classroom, and in some of our schools, we can get more.
okay, so, I mean, we've sort of been in our heads thinking roughly we're built for 100,000 and we have 47,000. Is it really that roughly we're built for 60,000? Or is that just not the
I don't
greatest
want
number?
to put them on the spot, but I'll have Alex
close.
Trevino, who has more experience than me in this, in Columbus City Schools, speak to
Well,
that.
and if it's not, you know, it's just,
No, it's a great
seems like
question.
it's
Let him
worth
answer.
knowing.
It's a great question.
Sure, President Adair to Board Member Beckerly. I would say it's a little bit of both. So the seat count that Dr. James just gave you is accurate. So based on the state's metrics, we're at 59,000 and a few seats, and that's based on the state's metrics. To the comment that President Adair made earlier, I would say that it's still a relevant one because, I think about the way our city has grown over the times, and you look at annexation and where our furthest east, west, north schools are. So they're the same locations that were built in the 1970s when we were at that 100,000 plus size. So in terms of thinking of how the district is designed and where our facilities are located and where our capacity is, I still think that's a true statement as well. I mean, we're really still at that design from when we were a much larger district than we are today. I hope that helps.
I should have said at our peak, we were at near 100,000 students when we were building in the 70s.
You were
Yeah.
accurate. You're fine.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I mean, it's not just you saying it now, that's kind of been our frames of reference, so I wanted to make sure we weren't misstating that as we go about chatting with people. I had one more thing. Or did you want to talk about that?
Well, I just wanted to,
Okay.
but he's not going to answer the question, though. I don't know if, Alex, do we have, or off of your top of your head, since 2000, so we started this process, some of this process, since 2009, do you have like a gauge of how many buildings we've kind of like closed and sold? Because I know that we keep talking about, then that's why I wanted, we keep talking about this 110,000 that everyone keeps talking about and doesn't remember that, we've annexed buildings, space to Bexley and to Whitehall and to Upper Arlington and to some of these other districts. That's why there has been some changes, not all changes of these annexed, in the our reduction in student. And that's why I think people still think we're at 110,000 is because we have closed a lot of buildings in the last 12, 13, 14 years. Do you have can you share an idea of, I want to say 30, but I could.
So President Adair to Vice President Reyes, I would feel much better if you let me go back to our spreadsheet. I know they tended to close in waves, right? So it wasn't like one building each year or anything. It was always 5 buildings here, maybe 8, 10 buildings here. There were a couple of waves of closures, but I could get you that information.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Do you have an additional question for Dr. Dixon?
Yeah, I do. The fit testing, the outsourcing, the contact tracing, it seemed like there were a lot of measures taken in terms of the health front. Have we, or have you been able to circle back with CEA and the nurses? Are they starting to feel a little less stressed? Have they, are we addressing their core concerns? Do we have any feedback about that?
No, I know the fit test for the N95 mask was something that we had new nurses coming on, so we wanted to make sure we had that, and then we wanted to extend that to administrators and others. The ProLink, yes, that's going to be a big relief to them, and that was something that we decided prior to provide some relief to them, and we were able to get. ProLink has nurses and LPN. So we initially, if you remember, we asked our members of our OPSI staff to assist us. And so that was our first approach. And then we found this organization that had nurses and LPNs. So again, providing additional support to them to relieve them of this duty. I'm sure it's going to be very rewarding for them because we wanted them, again, as we stated before, to focus on our students and their health needs and not do the contact tracing, which was very time consuming to them. And also remember, we also moved to sending the letters out electronically because that was the first thing we did. So we were being responsive because some of the things we knew early on, because remember we had a meeting with them early on to hear their concerns, and we were addressing their concerns from that point. So these two were some additional things that we stated publicly, but we knew early on that these were some things that were frustrating for them as we were coming back to school and knowing that they had these additional responsibilities. So I'm sure they're going to be thankful. And we've also hired an additional nurse supervisor. We had 3 openings. We only had 1 filled, so now we have 2. And we're looking to hire an additional nurse supervisor to provide some additional support.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Board Member Ragland.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is around transportation. I know we didn't have that necessarily in the report today, but could you let us know how things are improving with transportation and you know, kind of where we stand this week as opposed to the last time that we were, you know, together? We were still facing some challenges. Have things improved from several weeks ago? And I'm asking this in the context of I've had several parents that have reached out to me concerning private entities that are offering transportation services. And I have unequivocally said to them, we do not sanction any private entities to transport our children to and from school. That's something that you will do on your own. But if you can just tell us where things are with transportation right now, if that's possible.
Thank you. So transportation continues to be a concern. We still have a driver shortage. We are still working on training, providing more, giving more opportunities for our drivers. We are moved to offering courses through our adult education. So if we have people in the community who would like to be a part of our transportation team, and we're also looking for ways that we could possibly waive some of those fees, because we know there's some training fees that are costly to those drivers. So we want to make sure we're waiving those. We can look to waive those fees. So yes, we still have a driver shortage. We're still looking at ways to get more people into this profession so that we are providing that quality service that our students and families deserve. And we know that we have been challenged with that this year, and we are still exploring some additional opportunities. So I say to our parents, again, I know we, in some sense, sound like a broken record, and I understand it, and it is frustrating for us as an organization to come back each week and say that we don't have it all figured out yet, but we still are experiencing we have a critical need for more drivers. So again, if we have people who want to be in this profession, please come. We have opportunities. We're looking at waiving fees. To our families, thank you for your patience. We're still working to find ways to consolidate routes, to cut the wait time for our students. We know that we have some people that are being trained in our call centers. And so we are seeing some of that time, that reduced time, wait time for families that are trying to get through to transportation. And so we're still seeing some positive there. But we don't have it figured out yet, but we're still striving every day to get more drivers. As we get more drivers in, that is going to help us tremendously.
Thank you, Dr. Dix. Thank you, Madam President.
A transportation question?
No, I'm going to go to, are you finished, Board Member Ragland?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to go to Dr. Pearson, then I can come back to you, Board Member Beckerly.
Okay.
Thank you so much, President Adair. So, Dr. Dixon, I have a couple of questions. The first one relates to the CATS review. Will that notification or will that review impact the notification that goes out to parents related to quarantining? Can you explain how that review process will play out in a nice overview?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're including the CATS team. So currently we have, when we're making the decision to quarantine large groups of students, so for example, a large class or athletic team, we're not utilizing our CATS team to as the first line of intervention, sort of. So they come together, we're looking at the CATS data to make a decision before we quarantine our students. So now we're going to bring that team in so that schools are not making those decisions in isolation. So now the CATS team will work with that school to look at the data before making a decision to quarantine a particular building, this large groups of students.
So when I think about large groups of students, I'm also thinking about classrooms that have been quarantined here
Correct. That's
recent.
mhm.
So will we give tips to staff as well in terms of having their seating charts ready, teachers not spending longer than 15 minutes, you know, with one student?
Yes, so what, we have our team, Dr. Michelle Klein, and and our consultant, Dr. Sarah Bodie, that are working with our nurses and our nurse supervisor to update them on our updated protocols.
Okay.
So they have a letter that was going out to our staff members, to the nurses today. I believe it was going out today or tomorrow morning. And then they're also going to have a meeting with all of our nurses. So again, it's just another layer of expertise to look at the data. And so again, that buildings are not utilizing their time trying to figure that out in isolation.
And just clarify for me, our nurses will be doing no contract tracing. That will all be outsourced, or contact tracing, that would all be outsourced now?
When people are trained, remember there's a training piece, so the board will agree, hopefully the board will support it, and then those team members will come on and be trained, and the number of nurses and LPNs that we have available to start, they will start, but it will be a transition time, and then through that transition time, the goal is that none of the contract tracing will be done by our nurses. That's the goal.
That's the goal. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. As I was looking through our website, it seemed as if our vaccine clinic was kind of buried in your weekly report and in the COVID-19 facts or answers and questions. Is there any way we could pull that information up to the front so families can get that as soon as they go to our website?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And then reviewing that information, it says that the first dose is given. So are we looking to bring in additional sessions for that second dose to be given?
But actually, that's a good question. I'll check and see, because, right, you can get the booster, the first dose, or the flu shot.
Or the flu shot.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yes, so I would like to
follow up on that
know
one. Okay.
when that second dose will occur. And I'm assuming it'll be at those same schools, hopefully?
Possibly.
Possibly?
Yeah.
Okay. So then my next question, I'm just one of those moms that has children that don't like getting a lot of shots at the same time. So say your child wants to still get the flu shot, but doesn't want to get the flu shot at the same time they're getting the COVID shot. Are we still offering our traditional flu clinics in the school buildings like we've offered in the past?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have a team member here to answer that. That's a good question. I'll follow up with you on the answer for that one.
Okay. And then my last question, I think we're super excited to have a winter graduation.
Yes.
Yes. Thinking about the needs that we have in the district, have we considered having a job fair during that graduation where we can kind of invite some of those graduates, their family members or community members that might be attending to apply for jobs in the district?
It's a good idea, Dr. Pearson.
I tried.
So for those who may not know, one of the things we wanted to do different this year was, remember we had about almost 200 students, fifth year seniors, who did not finish. And we decided, did not finish by August, we decided to offer an opportunity, a mid-year graduation in January. I think it's January 28th would be the ceremony. And that would give those students, we didn't want them to have to wait another entire year. And if that would give them an opportunity to go to Columbus State or get a job, but that's an excellent opportunity to have that graduation maybe combined with a job fair. I like that idea. I give that to the team. That's good.
Thank you. Those are all my questions. Thank you, President Adair.
You're welcome. Board Member Beckerly, quickly.
Love the mid-year graduation. Transportation, I think that I certainly think that the board should know, but more importantly, the community should know some metrics about where we were versus where we are. Like we know that there's still a shortage. You know, how many more bus routes, how many bus routes have been canceled, on a given day. Like I'd like to see that data. I'd like to know how many absences we have that are due to a lack of a bus route entirely. And I know that's probably hard to nail down, But we must have some way to ballpark it, because we know how many buses didn't get sent out because the driver didn't show up, you know, and I don't know what those numbers are, but I just think that we should have a sense of those numbers. And hopefully how they're declining.
And break that out by region.
Okay, break it out by region.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks like there are no additional questions. Thank you for your report. All right, we're going to go ahead and go to the Internal Auditor's Office. Hello, Auditor Smith.
Hello, Board President Adair, Vice President Reyes. I do not have a report for this evening, so I turn it back to you, President Adair.
All right, we're going to now go to the Treasurer's Office. Hello, Mr. Treasurer.
Good evening. I do have a report for you this evening. This will be the monthly financial report for September. It was presented to Finance Committee last Wednesday. Through September, or during September, both revenues and expenditures ran under plan, bringing those to $52 million below plan for revenues and $62 million below plan for expenditures. The main takeaway here is that because the plan is based upon the May 5-year forecast, and we had the new state funding formula come into place, where it's changing the funding mechanism, number one, by funding students where educated, and number two, eliminating the deduction for charters and vouchers. It significantly changes the base upon which we should base our plan. You will hear more about the 5-year forecast at your next meeting. I did present it to the Finance Committee if you want to go back and watch it there, and you can see the impact. But the variances here are solely attributable to that change and its impact on the estimated revenue and expenditures for fiscal 22 and beyond. Like I said, as we delve into revenues, of the $52 million, $53 million in state aid is running under plan, so that's the big contributor there. And I did note for the committee that the variance that we saw last month in the property tax allocation resolved itself as the plan and actual caught up to one another. When we delve into the other revenue items, you can see here there's the property tax allocation being pretty much on plan, and then the other revenues slightly above plan. Other financing sources involve transfers and advances, and those are timing issues. One of the things I did point out to the committee, a little new look at our finances. I'm going to begin talking to them about looking at this on a quarterly basis, because many times I say, just like I did with the property tax allocation, this is timing. Something happened in August, it resolved itself in September, and so you get perhaps a better picture if you look at our variances and where we stand against plan on a quarterly basis. And we'll be kind of just discussing that as we go along, but this was one beginning to take a look at it. And you can see here, just on this particular line item, the plan called for property taxes to come in over a 2 to 3 month period, when in fact they pretty much came all in 1 month in August. Well, the variances that we saw in July resolved themselves in August, and we remained steady through September. So just an example of why maybe quarterly look would be more meaningful. On to expenditures, a total of $62 million year-to-date under plan. Again, you can see charter. There's a plan item there for about a little over $50 million, and we've only have $89,000 in expenditures this year. The only item remaining in that object code, 478, 479, for the accountants in the audience, or at least the school accountants in the audience, in those objects is College Credit Plus expenditures are going to come through there. So you can see that that's the major contributor to the variance. On the personnel side, this past month, as I had mentioned to the committee, I watched September because that's when increases are then being paid at the collective bargaining increases, new staff comes on board, et cetera. And in the month of September, we were within $2.3 million of plan, whereas in July and August, we were $7.5 million and $5.1 million under plan in July and August, respectively. So we're much closer to plan on a monthly basis there in August. Looking at other non-personnel items, you can see here some are running above, some are below. Purchase services and other objects are running slightly below, with supplies, capital outlay, and other uses running slightly above. But they all net out to just $2.7 million above plan year to date through September. So what did we have? One of the things I mentioned we had to look forward to as far as the monthly financial reports are concerned is either in November or December, we'll begin to use the November forecast as the basis for the plan. So you'll see these variances really adjust themselves at that point in time. We will not see the state aid formula, I don't believe, until December. They're working on building that algorithm and all those variables into their calculations and their website and the reports that they can generate for us. So we won't have a true picture on that. You'll hear about in the forecast the estimates that we did make, that we believe that we should see. Those are the LSC estimates during the time the bill was being discussed. So I'll have more on the 5-year forecast in November. So as always, there's more to come. I'll keep you up to date as we go along. Just know that revenue on the state aid, well, you'll see it'll be dramatically reduced because of students that leave our district will no longer be in the top end of this calculation. And the charter call-out will go away. We used to call that out purchase services because it was such a large dollar amount. Well, that's going to go away, so we won't be discussing that. And like I said, we'll know more about that in December. With that, Madam President, that concludes my report. And a call out to our OPSI leadership. I hope that I was short enough this evening and lived within the 5-minute request that she personally made, because she's so excited about the next item on the agenda. So.
We're all excited.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from the chairs of the Finance Committee? No? Board Member Ragland? Deferring to Board Member Beckley. Okay. Board Member Beckley.
Okay. I think you answered this at the Finance Committee, but I am trying to remember that we were 14 million below in personnel expenditures. What's driving that? If I read it right. Maybe I didn't read it right. Like 2 slides back.
Yes. And typically, it's that the plan, the 5-year forecast, is very conservative. In other words, it's generous in terms of estimating the expenditure. So we anticipate running below plan. So there's not really a behavioral issue that we see that's driving that. It's more just simply of an issue of how we do the forecast, that it is very conservative, and we do want to remain under plan in many of the categories, just from a conservative forecasting standpoint. So I don't see any behavioral issues. Unlike last year, as you recall, I did do some comparisons to prior year expenditures, and we saw that certain revenue line items were down, most notably overtime. That was a behavioral difference.
Let me ask this question then. And I don't know if 14 million, what the number is, so I don't know what percentage it is of under plan. But does that, I mean, I see that and I think, oh, let's hire more teachers and get the student-teacher ratio down. And should I not think that because it was such a conservative estimate? Or is there some wiggle room in there to do adjust or hire more whoever?
I would say, no, you should not think that, quite frankly. And I think what should drive your decision about staffing is academic programming.
Absolutely.
Well,
to the extent that academic programming drives staffing, I'll let you know, and when they provide that plan to me, how that's going to impact our 5-year forecast picture. So during Finance Committee, I talked about the timing of our budget discussions for the upcoming year, and one of those is the staffing plan, which Dr. Dixon's team is working on. Not only what they're doing this year with staffing, but what our plans for future years will be for staffing. So we'll see that next spring, looking forward. So if there's a need academically, whatever it is, either programmatically or class size, whatever drives that from their perspective, we'll factor that into the forecast. I would not read running under plan as a need to rush out and spend more money on something, simply because we're under plan.
All right, I did my offhanded flippin' comment again, and that was, I did not mean to
And I won't let it go,
suggest-
and I wouldn't let you go on it. I'm sorry.
I know that you're not just going to go willy-nilly and hire teachers,
Sure.
but is there room there to think about a program that could, I mean, that's my question, and it doesn't need to be answered now, but it just seems like it's something to think about because that's a significant chunk of money.
Well, when we look at program, anytime the academic side of the house has an idea for a program, some change in behavior, they always come to us and say, we would like to do this, let's cost that out. What do you think the impact will be? And we can look at that to see, how significant it is. And it's really up to the superintendent to say, I know that's going to have an impact, but we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to recommend to the board to do that. We're going to institute this. And then we'll assess that financial impact through FAC in our discussions about planning. So
and excuse me, our friends from OPSI, because this is dragging on, and I know it is, but I think this is worthwhile.
Maybe it's worthwhile,
Because it
Carol.
sounds administrative.
I think that maybe this might
Sounds
be a better
administrative.
conversation for you and Stan to have to.
No,
so you get
not what I'm going to say. I'll
better-
say it fast.
Okay.
Culturally, we are an institution that does not that is not comfortable pushing the limits, that is not going to look at an excess of $14 million on the personnel line and say, I need to think about more programming. We live within our means. When I say to people, what's a bottoms-up estimate of what something's going to cost, they say we can't afford it. So there is a culture point here. That starts with us. And so I think that the board needs to be mindful, and we need to encourage the superintendent and the administrative team to not just chug along if there's an opportunity to do something intentional. And so that's my point, and I'm happy to continue having that conversation.
Yeah, I think
But
that.
I'm done now.
First of all, I wouldn't characterize it as an excess.
No, and that's the core
Right.
question. Absolutely.
But I
That's
think
why I
that
started that.
to Dr. Dixon's point, she is making a staffing plan now, which is something that apparently was not in existence before. So this will now start to help drive
Sure.
the 5-year forecast and what is planned. And so so it's going to happen.
And to add one other point, we always utilize our grant dollars, right? There are federal dollars that we can use to reduce for class size reductions. So we are always using those as opportunities too. And when we see our classes, if we think about programmatically, if we see there's an opportunity to do smaller classes in some subjects, then yes. But I think it goes back to some other work that we need to do when it comes to that facilities master plan and that work that will give us the opportunity to look at our programming from the 50,000 point view and to know, because we have some schools, well, that's another conversation. We can come back to that.
Well,
Yes.
But the point is where she's just to wrap it.
Yes.
So if we have an operational need, that is a discussion that can be had, but not just, it's like you have a home budget and you don't be like, oh, I guess I got an extra $200 this month. Let me just go to Target and blow it. I mean, I know that's not what you're saying, but
You're not even close.
it's really strategic, and that's where they're kind of getting to. But we have some behind the scenes stuff happening. And so it isn't an extra 14 million
Madam
just
Chair,
hanging out.
if I may, just very quickly as chair of the
Yeah, go
committee,
ahead.
because I hear what you're saying, Carol. I do. I totally understand it. Let's center it down to one word. Let's distill it to one word: intentionality. Intentionality. We're distilling what your case is down to one word: intentionality. We are intentional on our side to ensure not only what you very, wonderfully heard from both of our executive level leaders, but there's something called 30-day cash balance. Hello?
Correct.
Okay. So there's something called 30-day cash balance that per annum we always want to be mindful of. So if there's one guiding assumption for us that's a guardrail, in fact, without it being a policy, so to speak, it is a behavioral guardrail for us that we say we want to ensure that we have cash balance available at, a certain level above red line. So think of that as one of those ways in which we're trying to be as, financially, fiscally, fiduciarily responsible as we possibly can on that end, along with the things that you just heard disclosed. But let that just be, be mindful moving forward that that's an ever guiding principle for us on the fiscal side.
Yeah, I totally understand that. That was
So intentionality. I thank you though, because I appreciate the question too.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get into board matters.
Oh, well,
I'm sorry, Board Member Regland.
yes, ma'am. I had a question for
Oh, I'm
Treasurer
sorry.
Behort,
Go ahead.
I yielded to
You sure did. I forgot. I apologize.
Mrs. Beckerly. So, okay, thank you. Thank you for the report, Mr. Behort. My question, I've got a couple. My first question is concerning the way that charter and vouchers are now being funded at the state. Is it accurate to say that charters and vouchers are taking money from the district based on the way that the formula is now being implemented at the state level?
I'm not sure that's an appropriate question for our treasurer,
Why isn't it?
because that is not anything dealing with our budget. You're asking him to comment on statewide legislation.
Well, that impacts the budget.
Not anymore.
Well, you can answer it to the, where you feel
Sure. I
comfortable.
mean, I think the old funding formula lent itself, because of the way it functioned, to say that because they were deductions from us.
Exactly.
And we looked at the dollars per pupil that came in above the line versus the dollars per pupil that went out with those deductions. And there was an inequity there, or an unequalness there. So yes, that model lent itself to saying you're taking those dollars away from the district for those students. And there was always that argument about, well, if $3,000, and this isn't the exact number, but if $3,000 comes in the top and $6,000 goes out the bottom, where's the other $3,000 come from?
Right.
And that argument about taking local property tax dollars with it. But anyway, the new model does not lend itself to that same argument. The argument now will lie with the state budget and how the state allocates dollars to K-12 public education versus vouchers and scholarships within their budget line. I might not say that correctly. Dr. Roush behind me could correct me, but it then becomes a budget allocation discussion at the state level. And to the extent that that share increases faster or slower than our share increases relative to that piece of the pie that K-12 education receives in the state budget, that will be the basis for the argument, because we will still fight for, on a dollar amount or per pupil basis, for dollars to come. We're all competing for state dollars, and so we'll still make that argument. But I think in a roundabout way, the new model does not lend itself to you're taking money away from us, but we will still make some argument at the state level that the allocation to perhaps charters and vouchers is disproportionate, and they'll argue the other way, I'm sure, too, politically.
And so one of the ways that we can increase the allocation that we get from the state is to increase our enrollment per student, correct?
That is correct. The enrollment count now becomes even more critical to us, because heretofore we were capped, as you know, so
yes.
Students could come or leave, and the number just kind of stayed the same. That's correct.
Certainly. So, no, then that's fine. That you answered my question directly. Thank you very much.
No
That
problem.
concludes my questions.
Okay, thank you. All right. Now we will move to item 7.1, resolution to approve the collective bargaining agreement with the Columbus School Employees Association. I'm going to have Dr. Dixon go ahead and lead us off in this.
So President Adair and the members of the Board of Education, I would like to recommend your approval of the tentative agreement we've reached with the Columbus School Employees Association for a new 2-year contract that runs through July 31st, 2023. I believe this agreement reflects our collaboration with our labor partners, and it shows the appreciation and the respect that we have for our 3,000 CSEA employees. These staff members are dedicated to our students and are essential to the mission and the vision of our district. Their efforts are evident in our buildings and on our school buses, day in and day out, the tremendous job that they do for our district. The agreement includes a base salary increase of 3% for all members for the 2021-22 school year, and a base salary increase of 2.25% for all members for the 2022-23 school year. All CSEA members will also receive a $2,000 retention and recruitment bonus spread across 4 stipend payments over the 2-year life of the collective bargaining agreement. We are fortunate to have federal ESSER grant dollars that will allow us to address recruitment and retention challenges that have been brought on by the pandemic. These bonuses are another way of showing our appreciation for our CSEA employees who have continued to help support our students and our community during the pandemic. Additional points to highlight in the new agreement include the creation of a joint professional development committee that includes members of CCS administration and CSEA members. Juneteenth was added as a paid holiday for year-round CSEA employees. Streamlined an electronic posting process for vacancies, but with no changes to seniority. Food service workers will receive a $200 over the life of the contract for uniforms. Increased flexibility for custodians to take vacation days during the school year. Moving some positions from 7-hour to 8-hour workdays, which affects more than 1,000 CSEA members. So I'd like to thank the negotiations team for their dedication and their diligence throughout this process. This agreement before you tonight reflects that collaboration and reflects our shared commitment to the students and the community that we serve. So to you, Board President Adair.
Thank you, Dr. Dixon. Kind of landing on the last point, first of all, thank you to both negotiating teams. This is it's a labor process that we go into where, we have management and we have labor to sit and look at the contract and, figure out what we think is in the best interest of our students. Sometimes we agree on certain things, sometimes we don't, and it's a negotiation. But in the end, it's always about us, because we are us. No matter your union status or management status, we're all here for our students, number one. I want to say thank you to the members of this union who are our essential workers. And I need you to know that there is not a moment in time that this board has not respected the work that you do and continue to do, because you are essential now more than ever. And so we are excited that we now can get back to the us, and we can move forward and work on creating wonderful environments for our students, supporting their academic growth, and enhancing our community. I would like to invite, I know this is off script, but I would like to invite President Carson to the podium if she would like to say a few words before we do the vote and sign the document.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent. Thank you. This is my 4th contract as president. This one was not easy. This one was trying at times. This one taught me a whole bunch of new cuss words, It also taught me patience and grace, because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, patience and grace. Is it everything our members wanted? No. Is it everything management wanted? No. We still got a long way to go. We still need to heal some relationships. We still need to work on grace that my team feels we don't receive at times. But at the end of the day, it's not about Lois and the 3,000 CSEA members, and it's not about the board members sitting here and the management team sitting here. It's about, did we do the right thing for the customers we service? And as CSEA president, I can proudly stand here and say, every day, CSEA members do the right things by the customers we serve. And we will continue to do the right thing to the customers we serve. Our ask of the board will continue to be our ask and I've asked this since August meetings, for respect for the work we do. I thank you for tonight's contract. It did not solve the issue of lack of respect. Board Member Cole asked me to put in writing, what do I mean by respect? What are we asking for respect? And I'll close with respect, grace, and dignity. We're all adults, and we give it back to the management team. We want the management team to give it to us. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Don't run away. Stay right there. Okay, we're going to go ahead and ask for a motion to approve the recommended contract by administration.
I motion.
Second.
We need a roll call.
Ms. Beckerly?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Dr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Vice President Reyes?
Yes.
And President Adair?
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to go ahead and let additional board members share some thoughts briefly while we are making a little move to bring the table around to sign. So I think I saw somebody wanted to say, Board Member Brown, did you want to say something?
Of course, I have always loved talking about OPSI members and my appreciation for OPSI and what it does for its members and what it does in helping their members take care of our kids in many, many ways. And, you know, it's a lot of little things, but it has a huge impact on all of us that are involved in the schools, our students, our parents, teachers, yeah, I understand that the work isn't always noticed or recognized all of the time. You know, and there's so many things to attend to. But I want to make sure that you know that we do greatly appreciate the good work that you and your team do for us. And I'm very happy that we've gotten through another round of negotiations to get to an agreement. I think everybody tonight has said it just right. And there will be more to come. But it's a process that I think we've learned to make it work. If we intend to have a good relationship and a workable relationship, it's something that we have to do and understand the process. I've been involved with the process since it was first created in Ohio, and I've seen it grow in a lot of ways over the years. It continues to play out, sometimes not smoothly, but works out well at the conclusion. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam President, for allowing me the opportunity to offer just a few words. Those words are in the form of a challenge. They're in the form of a challenge to this board, my colleagues, to our administration, to our certified and classified brothers and sisters in arms in this district. Some time ago, well, let me start with this idea first. The first idea is that this district suffers from a belief gap. It suffers a belief gap. It suffers the idea of looking at itself so small when it is so big and so magnanimous. And all the things that we do, we bring nobility, we bring creativity, we bring all of the things that Portrait of a Graduate on every level of our organization to bear. But for some reason, we don't talk that. We are a central part of the city of Columbus. I hope you got me on camera as I say this. We are a core pillar of the entire city of Columbus, including Central Ohio. We are one of the largest budgets in the region. We have the most employees. We are a central part of why people even come to a city or leave it. The time is now to close the belief gap. We are much bigger than what we present ourselves, and more importantly, what we think about ourselves. We're bigger than this. Let's close the belief gap together. I think one of the core ways in which we need to do this, and I've heard it directly from my brothers and sisters from CSEA, is treatment of people. All folks matter in this instance, as we're not just providing to customers. My son is not a customer. He's not. He's one of our children. Some of your customers are your grandbabies, your nieces and nephews. You understand? So we're not customers. Let's reframe, let's reimagine what we are and really change this, close this belief gap opportunity that we have for ourselves, that you all are very central to. If y'all don't believe, who is? If our kids are not hearing that other adults don't believe and don't know, and largely it's because of ignorance, it's just you don't know. We gotta do better. So I'll say this, we gotta challenge ourselves to treat our people better. Make sure our people count, make sure that we develop policies that are inclusive of our internal people, that maximize our potential, that give us on a building for building basis what we need. We need more custodians. I said that right tonight, custodians. If this is what we need as frontline to our schools, let's have the courage of our conviction to give that and then ask the community for it moving forward. I'll just close with that. All I'm saying is treatment of people, I think, is central to helping us close the belief gap in this city. We are bigger than what folks think we are. We really are. And I'm tired of folks coming around here thinking that we don't bring anything to the table, that our children don't bring anything to the table. That's not true. And it's not true for our employees either. So thank you for your service. I look forward to working with you in these years to come. God bless you.
Dr. Pierce is going to say something, but I think we can start to sign documents since we all need to kind of come up individually and do so. So I will begin. Members from our side signing are Dr. Dixon, Treasurer Horick, and our Chief Negotiator, Julie Martin. So after I sign, I'll have them come up in that order: Dixon, Horick, Martin.
And thank you, President Adair. So the one thing that I want to say is that it's important that we give our OPSI and our staff the opportunity to have the last word today. I think when we talk about dignity and respect, this is exactly what they mean. We have to be willing to yield the floor and share the space. And so I think it's important that I want to yield my time and my comment back to the workers, to the individuals that take such great care of us and our students.
Dr. Pierce, to the OPSI folks standing around me, thank you. And Mr. Cole, I think I need to correct when I say customers. I know those are my babies. I am a proud product of Columbus City Schools with 3 children gone through this district and currently have a grandson in this district. So I say customers to say at the end of the day, we're representing the community and our families. But as I tell you board members all the time, most of our classified members live in Columbus City Schools. We vote for board members. We vote for mayoral candidates and city council. So I did not say customer to offend our families. Because you're right, they are way more than that. And my grandbaby will tell you anytime you visit his school building that his Nana fights every day for the school district. And him and my other grandson FaceTimed me the other night to negotiate, that is the words they use. They were negotiating the purchase of a Halloween costume. And then the grandson that lives here said to the other grandson, hey, Forget it. Let's just form a union. And then I knew I've done a good job.
That's great. Yes. I love it.
If you like, madam, introduce yourself, please. Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephanie Wiley. I am the local president of Local 336, Columbus City School Bus Drivers. Superintendent Dixon, board members, I consider this an honor and a special opportunity to be here with my CSEA president. I wasn't prepared, but as my mom says, she's gone now. Always be on your A game because you never know when you might have an opportunity to speak. I've had many times to be in negotiations over my 31 years of service with Columbus City Schools. And this has been one of the most challenging that I have been in. So I will continue to keep my head up, keep pushing forward, and we will stay lifted and try to continue to keep our members lifted and just to stay fulfilled. And just keep continuing to just stay behind us, and we will do the same to try to continue to work as one. Thank you, and to be respected. And I am Vice President of Local 518 Instructional Assistants. I have been a union member for 39 years. Proud union member. I have seen negotiations come and go. I have raised 4 sons, all of them went through Columbus City Schools. Proud mama. Thank you, all of you.
Good evening, board members, superintendent. My name is Sally Clemmer. I am a secretary with Fleet Services. I have been with the district for 20 years. I am the treasurer of a Local 150. And this was my first true round of negotiations, and I was in the unenviable position of being the acting secretary, so I was in the room, but I had neither a voice or a vote. So that was kind of a tough position, but let me tell you, I got an education. I learned some things, and Lois said she learned a few new swear words, and wow, I can't even begin to go into detail about the depth of things I learned. So it will be interesting to see what happens in 2 years, and hopefully I will be in the room. But I thank you for this contract. I know it wasn't easy, and Julie, it was a pleasure, so thank you.
Mr. Fields, if you would come and close us out so we can call it a night. I'm going to ask my team to leave. Some of them need to be up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning to report to their job sites.
Okay, hi everybody. My name's Derek Fields. I am president of Local 580, which is our head custodians local. Real quick, when I was a young man, my grandmother, I had just left college, and my grandmother said that you can get a job as at the Columbus Schools districts. And I said, well, Granny, I didn't get my degree, so can't do that. She said, oh, they're hiring in maintenance. I said, oh, Granny, nobody wants to do that, da-da-da. Fast forward several years later. This is what I do. This is what I love. I've got kids that have gone through Columbus City Schools. I've had grandkids that are now in Columbus City Schools. And believe it or not, I've got some greats on the way that will be here. In closing, we got to get it right. We have to get it right. It's important that we get it right. I'll do what I have to do. I just ask that you do what you have to do. Thank you.
Much, and I know that you do have to go, but I want to make sure that just for both of these copies were signed by everyone, just to make sure that that happens before you do scoot off. Thank you so very much. President Carson, did you want to say anything?
Do due diligence to get the last signatures that are needed, but you have the official signatures that will warrant that it's an official document tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations, everyone. We look forward to this 2-year contract and working together as a team, as everyone stated. So you are all very much appreciated. Thank you for all that you do for our children. Okay, are we supposed to do a picture? That says so in my notes. I'm sorry, do you want to do a picture with everyone? Yes. Don't leave, members. I'm sorry. Really quick, President Carson. Yeah, okay, board members, get in the front, please. Superintendent, treasurer, Julie.
That's the first picture I've been in, I think, ever.
No, I cut this out. I cut pictures out. Okay, board members, please head back to your seats. We are now in item 8.1, which is public hearing on reemployment of retired employees. Each of these 3 are actual retired bus drivers who are coming back to provide assistance to us, so thank you.
Yes.
No one has signed up to speak on each of them, so I will read them, and then we will move forward in the agenda. So the first is item 8.1, public hearing on reemployment of Weltha M. Hayes. No one has signed up to speak, so this concludes the public hearing on the reemployment of Weltha M. Hayes. 8.2, public hearing on reemployment of Joyce A. Mix. No one has signed up to speak. This concludes the public hearing on the reemployment of Joyce A. Mix. 8.3, public hearing on reemployment of Wendy G. Watson. No one has signed up to speak, so this will now conclude the public hearing on the reemployment of Wendy G. Watson. Thank you for coming back.
Yes.
Okay, board members, we're now into our consent agenda. This evening's consent agenda consists of item 10.1 to 24.7. Are there any items?
Motion to approve.
Woo!
Eric motion, I second.
Okay, so there's nobody wants to pull anything, it seems. Okay. All right, so there's been a motion and a second.
I don't know by who, but
Okay,
there was a
Eric
flurry.
Motion,
It's over.
I
So we got
second.
Board Member Brown and Board Member Pierce. Thank you.
Okay, are there any items that board members would like to discuss? Board Member Cole, which item?
It is, forgive me, I'm doing this with my glasses on. The CODA piece.
Anyone remember that number off the top of your head?
That's 16.
Somebody saying.
I think it's 16.6.
16.6.
16.6.
is it 16.6?
It's 16.6.
Authority to enter into a purchase agreement with Central Ohio Transit Authority?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to take a moment to applaud this initiative. This is actually, from what I understand, one of the best agreements we've ever, even been presented with in regards to CODA. This offers an opportunity for our students, as again, I understand it, to have as many swipes as they need on their cards. For my colleagues who are new to this, and certainly new to this agreement process, the past meant that students were charged per swipe, and that was $1.25 per swipe. So students could be charged up to $5 a day, $25 a week, right? This agreement is $27 a year per student, $27 a year per annum per student, with unlimited swipes. This gives them the opportunity for summer use as well. So I really applaud this agreement. I remember a former colleague of mine, Mary Jo Hudson, who came to the table and really beat the table with a red face about, and I'm not exaggerating, it's not hyperbole. She was pretty unnerved, and so were we, at the agreement that was standing at that time, that we could do better for our students. And I applaud this administration for bringing forth something to me that I feel comfortable, more than comfortable, with signing off on. So thank you, Madam President.
Board Member Brown, and then Board Member Ragland, did you have your hand up? No, okay, Board Member Brown.
Just very briefly, I want to applaud the administration for several items on the agenda that represent advanced planning. Some steps that we've taken to hire backup companies to step in if necessary. And I think that's wise. I don't know for sure if that practice has occurred here in Columbus before, but it's certainly a good one. I don't know to what extent it's spurred by our pandemic, but it's a good thing that we've done. And those are not dollars that we're actually spending unless and until they're needed, but it puts us in a much better place to move forward if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to add too, if you guys recall last year when the student ambassadors were part of working with CODA and they did videos.
Yes.
So they did the videos on how to ride the bus and what the bus stop looked like. So they did that during the pandemic, working with CODA. So yeah, kudos again to the student ambassadors who work with CODA to provide this opportunity.
Thank you. Any other items any board member would like to discuss? Just shout out, I don't have the diplomas, I don't know where they went, but we do have several 22 plus graduates, so congratulations to you. Sorry I don't have them in front of me to read, but there was at least 6 I think I signed, so congratulations. And thank you to the United Methodist Church for giving a donation to Northland High School. Okay, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes, and also thank you to the city of Columbus for what may be a prospective more than $5 million to our 2 of our schools for HVAC. Thank you, Madam President.
Dr. Pierce?
With the exception of 13.1, which I'm abstaining, yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Vice President Reyes?
Yes.
President Adair?
Yes,
Ms. Beckerly?
Yes.
Motion carried.
thank you. All right, we are going to now hear public comment on non-agenda items. The first participant who is going to be virtual this evening, Rashida Angus, topic mask and the uniform policy action. Consider my testimony after your review. Who is that we are here to support? Board liaison, or I'm sorry, Misty got a promotion. Congratulations, Misty.
Yes.
I forget your title now, government affairs. You have the caller on the line.
President, are the speakers on the line?
You have 4 minutes to address the board. 3 minutes to address the board. I'm sorry, we just had a change in our time. 3 minutes to address the board. You may begin.
Certainly. Okay. Hello, everyone. Dr. Dixon and Columbus School Board officials. My name is Rashida Angus, And I wanted to start off by saying first a famous quote from Socrates is that a wise man knows that he knows nothing. And so I'm either to believe that Columbus City Schools doesn't know anything about what I'm going to say, or you're completely conforming and compliant with what is going on. The reason I asked to speak to you today is a few issues concerning to me regarding COVID responses in our Columbus City Schools community. The first issue is addressing the inconsistency in the school's quarantine process. For instance, on October the 11th, I received 3 separate quarantine letters from 2 separate schools of my children. Prior to that, I had received an email on October the 8th regarding sibling quarantine. In light of this, as I had done with the previous quarantine letter from September, I kept all siblings home. Yet this time, I was instructed to send my 1st and 4th graders to school. Although other siblings in 2 different schools were sent home to quarantine, I was notified that if I did not send those 2 kids to school, that they would not be excused. Tell me why it would make sense to send any of my kids to school if various others were sent home to quarantine and we all share the same residence. It doesn't make sense to me. The next issue I wanted to address is the mask. Recent peer reviews have revealed that while COVID is 99% survivable in most groups, the variety of masks increase the risk of bacterial pneumonia or upper respiratory infections by 13 times in comparison to those who don't wear a mask. In addition, the mask reduces the oxygen levels within the lung tissue by 50%. Further peer review proves that SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19, as known as, requires a furin cleavage site to merge with your lung tissue, which works better with reduced oxygen levels. This makes COVID-19 easily infectious, which means you are placing healthy children in an unhealthy state, which is counterproductive to the complete basis of instituting the mask mandate in the first place. Next, we move on to the uniforms. It's been inconsistent throughout the whole year, since before I was in elementary school. One school has uniforms, one doesn't. The school that I chose, Livingston, my kids have been there for 4 or 5 years now. We didn't have uniform. All of a sudden, when COVID happened, kids come back off of Digital Academy, and there's uniforms in the school. No one asked what our religious belief was, or if we believed in wearing pants, consider what we considered. It seems as if it's just another form of conformance and compliance for order and control. I'd like to hear what the board has to say on these issues, and have you even heard of any of the recent studies that have come about regarding the mask and the unsafeness of them, if the whole purpose and basis is to protect our children?
Thank you so much for those comments, Ms. Angus. We here at Columbus City Schools follow all the health protocol and guidance that have been issued around COVID-19, including the recent change to how we quarantine. So we're going to have a member of our administrative team reach out to you to ensure all of your questions are answered. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this evening. Our next speaker is Willa Jackson. She's here in person. Topic, helping to address attendance problems among students. Action, hear my presentation as to how I can help with the attendance situation.
3 minutes. No fear. That lady got a whole half an hour. But anyways.
Oh, you can go ahead and get set up, and then when you come to the podium, we'll start the time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This is my 2nd time ever being amongst you all, and it is such an opportunity that I'm grateful for, and I wanted to say it first. Cramping is the leading cause of girls missing school. So I'm going to pull out this chair and get this started. I have here sanitary napkins.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start your time then.
All right, thank you so much. I'll begin with ours, because again, cramping is the reason why our girls are missing school. This is our product. It's thin, small, and it's totally sanitary, totally enclosed. Aren't you the sweetest? I thank you. So I'm just going to lay it here. Then I'm going to put beside it the #1 brand. And you see that it's already open, which means that it's not sanitary. And it says here that it's 100% leak-free comfort. Let's put it there. And last, let's put here what Columbus City Schools uses for your girls. It is enclosed, and let's just see how the absorbency is. The Medical Advisory Board tells us that a female secretes 15 to 50 milliliters of menstrual on her first day. So we're going to use a day's worth of flow. Oops, that's a little more. Let me put it. Thank you. And 15 milliliters equals about a quarter of a cup. We're putting it on a thinner, smaller napkin. Then we're going to use the #1 brand. Ooh. Okay. If you were close up, you would see how it flows. And then we will quickly put it on what you all provide. Say it again.
Is it helpful to tell us which one works best?
No, you got to see it for your own
I'm assuming
self.
you've done it at home.
Yes. Yeah. But you've got to see how yours measures up to the #1 brand in the nation and to our pad. And by saying that, this is the problem, is that our girls are sitting on wetness. I'm a retired classroom teacher, started out at Fair Avenue and ended up at Sherwood Middle School. So our kids would have to be there with me with English, social studies, and language arts, sitting on that hard desk, sitting on wetness. So of course they're not going to come to school every day because cramping is the #1 reason why they won't. So.
Well, thank you, Ms. Jackson, for that. I guess I'm assuming that you are advocating that we change the product.
I am.
Yes, okay. All right, so we will have our health.
Can I at least put the napkin on
Well, you
this?
can go ahead, but your time is up, so you can kind of do that and show us if you'd like, but we're going to move on a little bit. You can continue your demonstration there. But we're going to go ahead and we'll have our health, or whoever works on that, reach out to you if that's appropriate.
That'll be fine.
Okay, so actually, we are done then with our meeting. We have no executive session planned, so we can close on that presentation there.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second.
Second.
Without objection, the meeting is now adjourned.
Then I'd like to press on your napkin.